Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Going to defensive side. Had to start the defense, and who better to start defense with Mr. Incognito himself, Knox, coming back to the program. Now, I had to look. I went back and looked, Knox. The last time you were on is with our friend Debonair Dev, and we did the NFL predictions. I went back and watched some of that. We did pretty well, man.
Yeah, we did pretty good. Yeah. We did pretty good.
Except for our Ravens picks.
Yeah. I mean, it's nobody really was expecting a season like this, but this season will suffice. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how many bad Ravens seasons do we have? Like, how many bad ones?
It's
like that.
Lot, you hardly. Well, I mean, just all the bad luck. I've never seen it.
Right.
And if you believe in like karma or the way of the ups and downs, it almost seemed like Knox, we got a lot out of the way last year. That's how I'm hoping it works. Like, we were so unlucky last year. Some luck's due. It's like a hitter in baseball. You hit them line drive outs, and then you get one off the fist, and it ends up falling for a base hit. And it's like, man, I hit 6 balls hard in a row and didn't get anything for it. And the guy gets the better of me, and I get a base hit. So I'm hoping that's what happens with the Ravens. We get some comeback on our way.
Right. You and you both. I mean, we a lot of people were asking us to make, some, how it always is in free agency. Oh, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. We got to remember that we got to get some guys back off of injury, okay, before anything. You know what I'm saying? So this team wasn't bad last year. They weren't bad. They were just trying to deal with, the injuries as they come. They were taking them as they come and pretty much game planning around that. So
yeah, man, we're going to talk about 2 guys tonight that are coming off an injury, but there's only one that I'm particularly worried about, and Marcus Peters coming off a significant knee injury. Marlon's fine; he's back in the building. But when Knox and I were choosing who to pick, because the DB group, the cornerback group, is so large that I wanted to break it up into 2 shows. So I said, all right, Knox, who should we talk about? Let's talk about the 4 guys that we think will get the most action. And of course, Marlon and Marcus are 2, and then we signed Kyle Fuller, so that's 3. We chose Brandon Stevens for the 4th, but Knox, looks like there could be some competition for that 4th spot. Who's going to see those snaps?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be competition. Anytime you got 2 guys with Demarion Williams and you got guys with Jalen Armour-Davis, guys that are experienced at that position. And Brandon Stevens, as we know, converted from running back. He's still fairly new to the position. And then you add on trying to learn a new scheme as well, because obviously we departed from Wink. Now you put on, now he's new to the position and he has to learn a new scheme. Now, granted, he has that experience, he's got that first year experience filling in, but you also have guys that are coming from college that's been doing this, for however long, 3-4 plus years, however long, So it played, you got to kind of consider that when these guys are matching up and going against each other. There's some things that they can do that, Brandon Stevens just isn't there yet, feel like. It could be. Not saying that Brandon Stevens isn't a terrific player, not saying that he doesn't have the will, but sometimes skills kind of override that. And I think that that'll kind of play a factor into, who gets that determinant 4th spot.
All right, well, let's talk about Stevens then, since we threw some thoughts out there. He was moved around a lot. Just to recap, he was actually a running back at UCLA, transferred to SMU. They played him at corner, but they also moved him at safety there. He was moving all around the field, kind of hard to find. I remember scouting him, and the one game I was thankful he wore red shoes. He was the only one, because they kept moving him around, Knox. You know what I mean? And they, a lot of the players are dressed similarly. It's like, my goodness. So he was moved around in college, comes here. Deshaun Elliott goes down. He's thrust into a major role. And at times, like, I love some of the splash plays that we had for Stevens, but there was some some hurdles, natural mental, to be the free safety in Wink's system, a couple years after being a running back. A lot to ask for Brandon Stevens last year.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was a lot. And I mean, the versatility, we pride ourselves on being versatile. Guys that can play multiple positions, but you have to at least be technically sound at one. And when you got a guy that's like we talked about, I mean, converting over from safety to, running back, cornerback, converting over to running back, safety, cornerback. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. It's going to be some hiccups here and there. I mean, it was his first season, so you got to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But when you bring in guys that are highly competitive, guys that are hungry, guys that, like I just said, that are technically sound at one position, what they've been playing cornerback majority of their, time there, that's what they're sound at. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Nothing's going to be easy.
So my question to you is, number one, did you notice Brandon Stevens being involved in a lot of miscommunications? Like we can't tell whose fault it is, but it seems like if one player is a common denominator on a lot of this, so you did notice that. So my question to you is, and maybe more of a statement, I would like to see the coaches just let Brandon Stevens concentrate on cornerback, give it up at safety, especially if we're keeping Chuck. And we got Chuck, Kyle Hamilton, Tony Jefferson, Geno Stone, and Marcus Williams. I mean, we got plenty of depth at safety. Right. Let Mr. Stevens concentrate on cornerback. Don't do the same thing you did with Tyree Phillips and move him from position to position. Let him get into the groove, because I think Stevens, I mean, he's got the physical measurables and obvious skills. If he can just have things simplified for him, say, look, Brandon, you cover that guy. That's your responsibility. I think that he could thrive and have a much better year than he did last year.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that's the biggest thing, pretty much what we've been preaching since this broadcast started is guys just playing one position, focusing on one position, and you channeling all your energy into that. And it's easier that way. I mean, imagine if you're going into a job and they say, all right, Jason, we need you to, do this and then do that. And then after you're done this, we might need you over here. Like, you're never going to know what is my primary task, and that's confusing for anybody coming into any situation, and I mean, you treat it just like a job, but it's a career. It's going to be hard to grasp just one thing. All right, how am I going to perfect this? Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to be playing safety. They're going to have me down in the box. They're going to have me outside cornering somebody. It can be challenging. But
dude, it sounds stressful the way you put it. Like, that's
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting myself in his shoes. I'm not one of these people that's going to be out here just bashing, Brandon Stevens. Oh, he messed up here. Brandon Stevens, he messed up here. Man, he can't play. Man, we need to get somebody else. Because that's what we hear on Twitter. That's what we hear on Twitter. Oh yeah, we need to get somebody else. Bring somebody else in, man. This guy. And I think how we talked about earlier, basically with John Harbaugh, pretty much echoed it when he talked about the wide receivers. Just let guys play. How would we just give guys a chance and just let guys play and let them prove themselves rather than just scrapping the old guy and just, all right, now you put another guy in front of him on the depth chart.
Yes. And with Brandon Stevens specifically, I think that, the thing that makes me think he'd be better corner is he's not a natural playmaker. I think he's good in coverage. I think he's good. The closer to the line of scrimmage he is, the better he is. Right. I could see him covering some bigger targets, tight ends. I think he'd be very good on tight ends. Of course, we have Kyle Hamilton. But when you're talking about Brandon Stevens, you're talking about someone who's over 6 foot tall, runs in the 4.4s, all the athletic ability that you want. Showed up on special teams a little bit. And if you look at my channel and go back and look at the highlights, Knox, he made a lot of good plays. The problem was the playmaking wasn't there. He played 744 snaps, Knox. He had in 740 a lot of action, right?
Right.
He had four passes defended, and that's it, aside from tackles. No interceptions, no forced fumbles, only 4 passes defended, no sacks. So, we need more of a playmaker. I'm glad we got Marcus Williams back there to really have a stud safety, and that should make Brandon Stevens a better player.
Yeah, it's gonna make, and that's another thing that I was gonna allude to. I mean, when you got guys like Marcus Peters, bring a guy like Kyle Fuller, who is, I think a 2-time Pro Bowler in there, and had one season where he had 7 interceptions, which one of his best seasons. And, you categorize it. I think Marcus Peters has 31 interceptions, right? 31 interceptions is career.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and Kyle Fuller has 19. You know what I'm saying? And then you bring in Marcus Williams and you bring in Kyle Hamilton, guys that just have a knack for getting to the ball, making plays. and that's just going to be infectious. You know, I think it's going to resonate all through the cornerback room, all through the secondary. Guys are just going to feel a lot more confident. I think a lot of guys wasn't really playing too confident because they didn't know, you know, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be playing. I don't know, you know, if I'm gonna be on this snap. You know, guys were very unsure of their position. I feel like, um,
Yes, and I think I'm not going to take away from just box the coaches in to say, all right, you only use Brandon in this way. I think
right.
he can handle more than that. Like, I think his natural position, Knox, is on the right corner,
Hmm.
covering the X receiver, bump and run, press, like we see from
Right.
Marlon, a physical guy.
Physical, yeah.
But I think he can also play the slot and cover tight ends, and he's got some safety experience. So if you want to put him on the left side and Marcus's spot, you could do that too, and just
Right.
have him play a little more
Exactly.
off coverage sometimes and read these route concepts. But if you had to ask me, okay, you can only play Brandon Stevens in one spot, it would be versus the X receiver on the other team, bumped up against the line of scrimmage most of the time, and let
Hmm.
his athletic ability take over. A lot of people view him as more of a big slot corner, and if that's
Right.
his role, if that ends up being his role, if they don't trust guys like Demarion Williams and whoever else they're going to try in the slot, then I like Brandon Stevens there against bigger receivers too.
Yeah, and that's it's funny because literally when you were talking about, it, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, you just envision like a guy who's 6'4", 4'4s, and his physicality was the first thing that can we brought up when you see his film. I mean, he's physical. He's physical at the point of attack, and that's going to aid. Ravens are a physical team, especially you come in the AFC North. You got to be physical. Okay, we don't have time for guys to be you know less likely and stuff like that. Like if you're not physical, you got to be built for this. So
Yeah, you better be ready to tackle some
yeah,
running backs and some Jamar Chase. Those some
yeah, you
physical
got to be
guys, and
ready to
just
tackle, bro. Exactly, like run support is the first thing that we preach. I think from coming from the Ravens, and that's at any position, on the defense. Run support, stop the run, and you'll let everything, play out how it plays out, and you control everything from there. But
yes, and I'd see Brandon Stevens would be an above average tackler from the cornerback
right,
spot.
hmm,
Like you might say, all right, he's good as a safety, but compare him to other corners who don't like to tackle. That's not Brandon Stevens. Like Brandon
nah,
Stevens will throw his body around, and of course he's got the size and the speed and the quickness for it. So big things ahead, hopefully for Brandon Stevens. Maybe he has a quiet year this year, and if he did, I'd be fine with that because it would mean to me that we're healthy. You know what I
right,
mean? We're healthy. Like
right,
after last year, it's like Brandon can take his time and get on the field and maybe give Marlon a blow every once in a while, give Steve, get some guys off the field. But, I feel really strongly about this DB group, cornerback group, safeties, and Brandon will fit in just fine. So, who do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about Fuller, or should we talk about some MP? Yeah, where do you want to go, Knox?
I think I want to talk about Fuller. I mean, you just were talking about durability and guys staying healthy and depth, pretty much what you just said. With Stevens, and when you look at Kyle Fuller, I mean, over his career, he's played 112 games. I mean, that's the most durable. I think he honestly is one of the most durable corners that we have right now. Um, Now, granted, like I'm just talking about games wise, like he's got 112. I think Marlon has like 73, and I think MP has like 91
Okay.
games, they played. But I'm saying immediately he becomes like one of the most durable guys, like, which is crazy. I mean, I know last year he missed like I think like 6 games to a certain injury, but other than that, out of those seasons that he's pretty much played every game.
Yes,
So
until last year, and he got benched last year for poor play.
right.
And came back. So part of those missing games was, coach's decision. But yeah, I mean, he's entering his ninth season, and his first six was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
30-year-old, or entering his eighth season, I should say. Excuse me. First six in Chicago. 30 year
Right.
old from Baltimore. Baltimore
Right.
kid. He's got that All Pro. He's got the Pro Bowl. You mentioned his 19 interceptions. Knox only one interception in his last 2 years, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you never know, man. With that Chicago situation, it was kind of sticky. Um, it was kind of sticky anyway. I mean, when you got rid of Adrian Amos, I think that really hurt. I really think that hurt. Like you got to understand, a confidence corners' confidence come from the safeties. I need to know if I have help back there. I need to know what this guy doing. And when you get rid of him, when you pretty much leave Eddie Jackson on the island back there, and you asking him to become like the leader, it's just never really going to. And then you got who you had, Desai there, and I think for the longest they had like Dean Pease or somebody at Chicago, right? Like,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
It was a disorganized.
yeah, it's. I mean, like Jason, we have to really understand, like, when guys are unhappy in a situation where you don't have any expectations. I can't, you can't really, what are we really going to expect for a guy to be out here really putting his whole heart and soul into some of these games? Not to question a lot of these guys' integrity, because a lot of guys are playing on some bad teams right now and they still come out and put up terrific numbers. But I mean, everybody's not the same. Everybody has different morals. Everybody has different goals and expectations for themselves. So
Man,
yeah,
I was going to say on that topic, I bet you Kyle Fuller is just really happy to be here and
yeah,
get this chance here because I
yeah,
mean it's his hometown. If he's 30 years old, he was born around 92 or whatever. He probably
right,
remembers. He remembers the prime Ray years and the prime Ed Reed years and just
exactly,
everything that it means to be a Baltimore Raven. Chances are he was a fan, or if he wasn't, his family are fans. There's a lot to like about that, and there's something to be said that somebody coming home to play, new fresh start after a rough year in Denver. And one thing that impressed me last year, I was doing some reading some articles and stuff like that just to get the people in Denver's perspective. And they praised him universally, like all the beat writers, because after he got benched, he was a left cornerback for most of his career. Like he's a Marcus Peters type on that left sideline, man. Like that's where he makes his money and all those interceptions. So he got benched. I think he had a tough game against Hollywood, if I'm remembering, in week 4.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
when he benched, he handled it like a champ, handled it like a pro, came back, was called upon to play the slot, and played the slot at a higher level than he played outside for the first time in his career. So Fuller actually will give us too, Knox, if and when Marcus Peters is healthy, an option to play in the slot, because that's where he played his best football last year. And I think that says something about his character too. So a lot for you to talk about on all of that, man.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I actually went to school with his uncle, and not went to school. Obviously, he's significantly older than me, but I'm saying, like, he was my administrator at Woodlawn High School when I was attending there, and that's all he would talk about. Is getting all the Fuller. His brother Kendall and Vincent. He would talk about those, and he would just talk about these guys, and he had a glowing admiration for each one of them. So I can only imagine how, like how you said, Kyle feels and being a motivated situation. I mean, a team that's competing for a Super Bowl, at least that's the aspirations for
That's
everyone.
right.
And you're not in a situation where you don't know who your quarterback is. You don't know how many games you possibly going to win. You don't really have any expectations. And like you said, I mean, he's back home, and it that's already enough motivation for anyone to be back home. I mean, you seen that with Jarvis Landry when he signed with the Saints. We'd seen that with Stephen Gilmore when he signed with the Panthers. Like, you start to see where coming home has really, started to resonate with a lot of these players.
And you would imagine, especially after a year like last year where he was comfortable in Chicago, he probably got really used to Chicago after being there for 6 years and probably loves that
Yeah,
franchise for drafting them. And they had some good times too. But after a year of uncertainty in Denver like that, to come back to Baltimore, to an organization, it treats its players with respect and is going to have a good team. You have a good quarterback. You have, like you said, playoff aspirations. You have other good players around you. So that I think is going to make a huge difference too.
exactly.
You're playing with other talented DBs, especially, man,
Right,
corners, safeties. It's a well coached team as far as well organized. There's really a lot of stability. So for Kyle
right.
Fuller, it's got to be great for him to come back into such a stable situation And so if Marcus Peters isn't there week 1, my personal expectations is for Kyle Fuller to be given a shot at that outside corner. All things equal, Knox. Now we don't, this is early, bro. Like, we don't know what the preseason is going to bring in the injury situations, but like as it sits now here, June 4th, if Marcus, like we had to play tomorrow, I'd say Kyle Fuller is our left cornerback while Marcus is recovering. What do you think about his chances in the slot? And could he handle the shiftier, smaller receivers in the slot if we need a slot corner and Marlon and Marcus are healthy?
Yeah, I think you definitely put him in the slot. I mean, he's shown the ability in his time in Chicago that he can guard. He can guard guys in the slot and inside. I mean, that's to be proud of yourself on. You don't become a 2-time Pro Bowler just by doing one thing good. Like you just on the outside and you man the outside, especially with his interception numbers has been fluctuating. So you also have to lean on something. What is his other capabilities? And it's a guy that can play inside or outside. And I definitely see him fit that side. I mean, with Tavon gone, you kind of got to put a guy there that makes sense anyway. And I think Kyle Fuller is the best one. And like we mentioned earlier, I mean, it could be Stevens, it could be Demarion Williams, it could be whoever. It could be just an assurance, but I don't. Everybody was talking about like Kyle Fuller being like an assurance policy, right? Like, but I don't think you. That's not a type of guy that I would think as an insurance, just because he's too good of a player. Regardless of what the stats have shown over the years, I'm not even counting that. I'm counting when he's with the Ravens. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting it with a guy with a renewed mindset and motivated to win a Super Bowl in his old town. That's the Kyle Fuller that I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's impossible to tell at this point. He could just be on the decline in his career, or it could just be like what you're pointing out, where this is going to renew him and he's going to be back to the same Kyle Fuller, the very high-priced cornerback, one of the best in the game. So it'll be interesting to see which way that goes, but I see nothing but upside for, what the Ravens paid for him. It wasn't very much. So you got yourself a guy that a former All-Pro, Pro Bowler, a guy with a knack for interceptions that you could theoretically have on the same side with Marcus Peters. Can you imagine trying to throw into that coverage?
I can't imagine throwing period on the Ravens right now. I mean, you got Marcus Williams, you got Kyle Hamilton, who from everything shown so far that they've said he's been everything that they anticipated. And his playmaking ability. It's just a lot of playmakers in that secondary. And like I said, I mean, it's going to be infectious. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I hate to use that word right now because COVID is going on, but it's going to resonate. I feel like that energy is going to resonate.
See, you called yourself out there. I wouldn't even have noticed. And and that's bad because I try to notice everything.
I know.
And
look, I try to beat you to the punch.
I knew it because I'm going to find some kind of.
If you're not going to find it, somebody in the comments going to be like, "Well, I don't know, Knox. I don't think that was a good word to really use considering the time." Come on, bro. Like, y'all know what I mean, bro. Come on.
I got in trouble today for where somebody responded. Because I told the story of a buddy of mine who you actually saw. Him and his girlfriend used to order drinks, and the bartender, she would drink beer and he wouldn't drink beer. So I referred to what he used to drink as girly drinks. He used to order girly drinks and she would order the beer. And what would happen was the bartender would come and put the wrong drinks in front of him, give him the beer and her the pink looking drink. So I mentioned that in Twitter and just having a good time. And someone asked me to describe specifically what a girly drink quote was like. So I'm like, oh man, it's rough out here, Knox.
Yeah, it's rough, man. You gotta expound upon everything nowadays.
Yeah, man. I got to learn those lessons, man. I'm just too dumb and fun loving for my own good. So I did not respond. I just let. And ironically, the person's name was Karen. So I thought that was
that's a little ironic. Profile.
Yeah, well,
profile, man. But hey, sometimes no response is the best response.
So speaking of Twitter heroes, Mr. Marlon Humphrey, different kind of individual, man. Like I love this guy right here. Yeah,
oh, man.
He is entertaining. His takes are unique. Usually, he is in the extreme minority of opinion here. Like If everybody likes ice cream, Marlon doesn't like ice cream. Just an entertaining character. The teammates go after him all the time. So one of the best Twitter follows out there, Marlon Humphrey. But about him on the field, he's back practicing. Of course, his injury that ended last year was a torn pec, so his chest, and it didn't affect his legs. If anything, maybe Knox, he comes back a little bit more rested this year after calling it having to hang up the season early last year.
Yeah, and I think that's what we got to start realizing. A lot of these guys got hurt. With Marcus, I mean, granted, it's his first injury, so that's really the scare factor behind everything. You don't know how somebody will, come back. But with Marlon, he's dealt with little knick-knack injuries here and there. So, his body's pretty much accustomed to how to, the rehab process. Now, granted, every injury is different. I'm not saying every injury in the timeline is different, but just him having that mindset of, recovery and rehab is always a plus. So, like you said, I mean, and it pretty much attributes to him getting that rest. And, it happened at the end of the season, and I mean, the Ravens did the right thing. He did the right thing for himself and, shutting himself down, as well as pretty much majority of our roster. But I think it's going to be good for him.
Yeah, it could be a blessing in disguise, just getting him off his feet for that last month or whatever it was, 5 games, because Marlon has been an absolute workhorse for this team, moving from inside to outside. You talk about like the stuff with Brandon Stevens and Tyree Phillips. I mean, Marlon has been there, and quite frankly, I think that it was a main factor for him in some rare, not top-notch quality cornerback play. I mean, I still think Marlon comparatively. You look at his numbers, you look at his advanced stats compared to other cornerbacks, he's still very, very, very good. It just wasn't a typical Marlon type year where you saw the forced fumbles and that kind of thing. And of course, he just had a bad game against Cincinnati. It seems like everybody just focused on that.
Yeah, and I think, another thing, when you're unsure of those guys behind you, it plays a certain factor into it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we got to understand that at certain levels, and we've been longing, Eric DeCosta has been longing, John Harbaugh has echoed the same message, is that we need a ball hawk safety back there. So when you got 2 guys that are primarily dependent on, playing in the box, it doesn't aid anyone. You know what I'm saying? So, and it definitely doesn't help Marlon Humphrey. You know what I'm saying? It got to play so many, again, like how we talked about with Stevens. You kind of got to move him around. Of course, Marlon didn't go to safety, but he played pretty much everything else. Slide inside, outside. I mean, sometimes you'll match him up on tight ends. Sometimes you won't. I mean, I knew that Raiders game, he was on Darren Waller for a couple snaps.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all about having that assurance behind you. And when you don't have that, I mean, of course, certain things are going to happen. I mean, everybody's had games where they had bad games, but for a guy that's doing everything to his magnitude, I mean, it's kind of like expected, especially when you don't, like you said, you don't have those options behind him to really assure him of like, all right, I'm good. If I'll be on this island, I'm good. I got help over top,
Right. And, this is, I'm going to back you up on all this. First of all, the Marcus Williams factor, that safety net to allow him to play free. You brought that up. I think that's great. And then, of course, you have Kyle Hamilton, who will get some time on the back end, this year, of course. And he is a ball hawking type, too, with good angles, just a different style player than Deshaun Elliott.
Exactly.
So having that will help. The other thing is the talent around him. I mean, you made the work analogy earlier, so I'll try to make one. It's like Marlon was asked to do this, do that. Now do this now. Marlon, the best player is here. Go cover him there. All right, this week you're going to need to do that. Log in as many snaps as he physically could. After all the stuff he's done for us up until now in his career, just being a very durable, a tough player, tough tackler. So it's like Knox, I work for you, and every time I go in, you're making me carry the heaviest load.
Yeah.
And, eventually here in 2021, I had a couple of bad days, man. You know what I mean? There was a couple of days I was beat up. I just wasn't on my game, and now everybody's thinking my game falls off. Well, hopefully this year, I mean, last year we started with a deep secondary, and then we just had a historic number of injuries. I mean, we traded Sean Wade after he had a preseason interception. That's how deep we were to start the
You're
season,
right.
man. It seems like forever ago, but we were so
Right.
deep that we traded Sean Wade for a 5th-round pick,
Right.
and or whatever it was. But man, this year you look around at the help, you look around at the experience depth, and you look at the young players on this team. I mean, man, Knox, this could be a year where we carry a ton of DBs because of the talent around Marlon Humphrey. And to me, I would like to just see him go back to old school, bro. Like back to the
Right.
basics. Let him be on that boundary, pressing, being real physical, running people out of bounds. You run to his side, he's going to tackle you like a linebacker, high energy player, and not a to plug up all these holes that are coming through the wall.
Yeah, you definitely won't have to do that. I definitely think that he'll be at playing his natural position. A lot of guys will be at their natural position, just like how we talked about with Chuck Clark. Him playing strong safety, him being at his natural position, not asked to do much, not having you got guys around him that are compromised. You know what I'm saying? Like he won't have to do all this and go over here and cover these deep thirds and do all that because you got guys like Marcus Williams and of course Kyle Hamilton that'll do that for you. So you everybody will have that. I hope that everybody is playing a natural position. I hope that everybody is, comfortable with the guys they got behind them, and they
So
play resonates that way.
So, Knox, I'm going to ask you while I'm here, a little off topic, but Wink stressed his DBs a ton. Chris
Yeah,
Westry putting him in on Island.
yeah.
But have you gotten a feel from Mike McDonald from, I know that you can be, you don't like to talk about that, but you kind of know what's going on. Do you get a feeling of comfort from Mike McDonald from a player's perspective? And like, what do you expect to him as a coach to put people in their best positions to succeed? Because the reason I'm asking is I saw him adjust. It was not a Ravens looking defense at Michigan. He let David Ajabo and he let Aiden Hutchinson go get after the quarterback, laid back and said, my guys are better than yours, and didn't have to play a lot of games. So do you see as like Mike McDonald a strength of his being able to use what he has at his disposal and not being kind of like stuck in a certain philosophy?
Exactly what you just mentioned. For him not being stuck in a certain philosophy, I hope I said that right. But yeah, for them not to be, stuck in a certain ways, um, that's really going to attribute to these guys' confidence, is what I've been preaching. You got a young coach, and he's going to be, I mean, so most of these guys, guys like PQ, guys like Malik, um, Jabo, Owe, Bowser, a lot of these guys are young still. So you to have a coach that can meet you on those certain levels is definitely going to pay dividends. We've seen it. I mean, guys like to play for him. I mean, you look at Aiden Hutchinson and guys like Ojabo, they were glowing talking about Mike McDonald. So when you get those type of guys' approval, I mean, both of remotely could have been first round picks. I mean, Aiden was obviously a first round pick. Jabo could have been the same thing, you know. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that Mike McDonald is you're gonna start to see a lot of guys play with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy. Mike McDonald pretty much reminds me of Robert Saleh when he was at San Francisco. A guy with
Mm.
a lot of energy. Guys love playing for him. A player's coach. He can relate to his players on and off the field, and they're not going to feel. I think when you had Wink, right? So you had Wink and you had Rob Ryan, right?
Yes.
Ty got two guys that had an old school mentality. And I mean, how many times did Wink say, I don't care what the game plan is, the other team's game plan. I'm gonna do whatever I feel like doing, and he's just gonna have to figure it out. Well, when they figure it out, what's your other plan? What's your plan B? And I think
Right.
Mike McDonald he's gonna use a lot of players for their versatility. And for the most part, like how you said earlier, he's gonna let guys just play. I think that was the biggest thing. Like you've seen guys that leave this place, pass rushers that leave this place, and they say, "Yeah, I couldn't really establish a rhythm, and I can't." It was hard to really get scripted because, I mean, you had Justin Houston out in the flats at what 34 years old.
Right.
Come on, man! Like Come on, man. Like we're, you taking versatility to a whole new level.
Right,
Saying
right.
you got to
You
know
like
your
to be
personnel.
unpredictable. You like to be unpredictable. You like to be versatile. But there's a time, that old song. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah,
man. So sometimes Wink was a little bit, wanted to stick to his plan. I'll just say stubborn, man. I'll just go ahead and
yeah,
say it. And
yeah.
he, I respect the fact that he, had a lot of belief in his system. But I do think the McDonald change, especially for the secondary, to simplify things, to allow them to see things clearly, to allow them to tackle. They're talking a lot about how he's building the foundation of this defense and teaching it a certain way. Some of what they're saying is a little bit beyond what I understand, as far as like exactly what he's doing. Of course, they're not going to be real specific, but everybody's talked about the way him teaching it has been really unique. So I'm excited to see how McDonald employs these DBs, especially the safe,
Yeah,
especially the safeties. If I'm being honest, man, I want to see
right.
where he's lining up Kyle Hamilton and Chuck Clark and that kind of thing. So we didn't talk about Juice Man, MP.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
in some ways, Knox, I see him as like the heart and soul of this defense.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
He's just so likable, man. Like his attitude is contagious. He's got a certain like confidence to him,
Yeah, he's
but he expects you to do things right as well. Like I've seen him after plays, Knox, when somebody else blows an assignment, before he goes over and consoles them or gets on their butt, he's really upset about it. And I think
right.
people misconstrue, or they don't what's the word I'm looking for, misjudge, I guess,
Yeah,
Marcus Peters, where his heart is, and all this, because he does come off like brass and brash and all that other stuff. But man, I see a guy that's extra competitive, guy who loves the game and wants it played right, and
exactly.
I can't wait to get Marcus Peters back in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, and it's you can tell he was the heart and soul of this team because when he was gone, you can tell I mean, our secondary just looked bleak. It didn't look like guys were too sure of themselves.
Energy
The
level,
yeah,
did you
energy
notice? And
level.
that kind of
Oh, the energy level sucked. The energy level sucked. I mean, you can tell, guys. Marcus Peters has a whole different energy. He brings a whole different the trash talk, you know, the rough, rugged mentality, the dog mentality, and it resonates throughout the whole secondary. So when you lose that, it's I mean, what can you really expect, guys? You don't have that certain motivation. You don't have that certain inspiration from a guy, and you pretty much have to be your own, bring your own energy and that's going to be hard to do when you got guys going down. You don't know what your role is Sunday after Sunday. It's going to be hard to really bring your own energy when your energizer and Marcus Peters is not there.
and man, to me, it's not just like a positive energy; it's a confidence energy. Like
Exactly.
if I'm going out there and Marcus Peters is lined up on the same defense as me, he gives me confidence because I know number 24 over there is looking to change this game, and he expects the best out of me. And it's just like he brings a certain confidence, I think, to that whole group, that whole team. You can see guys, if you pay attention to people like we like to, man, guys rally around Marcus Peters and they feed off of that. So just from
Exactly.
not even talking about any of his skills, man, just from an intangible standpoint, Marcus Peters is important to this team. But let's talk about his skills. And obviously, the first thing is the injury, Knox. Uh,
Hmm.
man, he's one of the guys I'm holding my breath on, just because you have so many guys returning from major injuries at important positions. Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, both of your running backs. How long is it going to take them to get back to 100%? And then
Right.
Marcus Peters, of course, as important as any, maybe except for Stanley, I think is like the most important, man, because there's only one left tackle. But man,
Right.
are you feeling nervous about how long it's going to take Marcus to get back into shape? And what's your thoughts on all
Yeah.
that?
I mean, I think with it being his first injury, I think everybody is feeling a little bit, nervousness. Just because I mean he hasn't. I mean the dude's been durable. I mean 91 games he hasn't really had no significant injury. And every player experienced soreness through a 16 grueling season. So of course it's going to be a couple didn't practice stuff like that. But I mean
I mean, he was a warrior too. his 2020 season, there was a play. I don't, remember the end of the Browns game
What
with
is shoulder?
the lat. No, it was when they started lateraling the ball after
Uh-huh.
Lamar did the Superman thing, and Marcus Peters got his ankle rolled up on in that
Yeah, that's what
stupid last play. And he was hurt before that. He came off the field before that. You remember the playoffs? Where the commentator made this smart. It was like Lewis Reddick kept making smart comments about
yeah.
Marcus Peters. Well, they're going to go after Peters. Watch, they're going to go after Peters. And I think his pride's more hurt than his leg on that one. I remember saying that. And I'm like, man,
Right.
you have not seen the shots that this man has been taking and
Yeah.
playing through it. So I always forget to bring that up with Marcus Peters because there's so much else, but his toughness, Knox, like his willingness to play through pain. Sorry to interrupt you, man, but I
Nah, bro,
saw
you
that
good.
on
Yeah,
full
yeah, I'm
display
listening.
in
Yeah.
2020, and it kind of made me mad when Lewis Reddick said that. To be honest, 'cause I know he's a Cleveland guy and everything, but Marcus was playing through a lot of stuff, man, and he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, you gotta give this man his flowers. I think, when you got a guy that has 31 interceptions, as long as he hasn't been playing that long, and he's has 31 interceptions, 6 touchdowns. That's more touchdowns than a lot of players
Right.
on a lot of teams. Okay, the man has 6 touchdowns as a defensive guy. Like that's hard to do. So you're gonna have some love, you're gonna have some hate, you're gonna have some guys with some mixed emotions. I mean, Lewis Reddick hasn't been the most glowing guy admiration. He has his own little color commentary, but he can keep his suggestive comments to himself. Because nobody over here really cares. It's like at this time. I mean, he can stick to commentating, and that's what his job is. So nobody takes him serious outside of that. But man. I mean, you definitely want to have Marcus Peters on the field. I'm hoping that we can get him, and right in mini camp. I mean, considering how long ago it's been, I mean, pretty much like it happened like, you know, I think in what, September or August or
Yeah,
something.
it was less than a year. It was right before the
Yeah.
season, if I remember. Him and Gus went down in the same
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, he had, you give a guy enough time considering it's been his first injury. And, I definitely think around July he should be back in there. Hopefully, if all goes well, fingers crossed. But the Ravens definitely did their due diligence as far as getting depth behind him with those two guys, Demarion Williams and Jalen Armour-Davis. I got a good feeling about those two guys, and then you got Kyle Fuller and Marlon Humphrey, which is better than any secondary underline we had last year. It's better than any secondary. Kyle Fuller and Marlon Humphrey with Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton. That's still a formidable secondary.
So
So
talk about the secondary as a whole as we close it out here. We touched on the who we think are going to be the top 4 leaders in snaps of this group if everybody's healthy. But what about the group as a whole as far as the depth and the roster crunch that we're going to have as far as the DB room? I mean, I have a feeling we're going to see some kind of we're going to have to see some kind of roster games to try to get a guy like I don't even want to single anybody out as like a worse chance to make it than somebody else because there's just a lot of guys in this cornerback room.
yeah, they're gonna have to find a way to make it work. Simply put, you're gonna have to find a way to make it work. After last year, yeah, we don't need to be trading nobody away. Okay, that's for one. You don't need to be trading. Be selective in the guys that you cut, and hopefully you can bring them on the practice squad. But I mean, I look at Marcus Peters, Kyle Fuller, Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, Jalen Armour-Davis, Demarion Williams. You want to keep these guys, as many of those guys as you can. Obviously, besides the 3 locks who we know are Fuller, Stevens, Fuller, Marlon, and Marcus. And I mean, the safeties is going to be difficult. I think that's really going to be the question. I mean, you got Chuck Clark, you got Kyle Hamilton, you got Marcus Williams, Tony Jefferson, Geno Stone, or Darius Washington, who he had an injury as well, which kind of derailed his season. Even though he didn't play, I mean, as many snaps, but he was still getting some valued experience. So, I mean, what are you going to do there? I really don't want us to go into that mindset where we think we have enough depth. I think because we done that already, and you last year was a lesson. Last year
Right.
was a lesson. So I mean, however they got to do it, put guys on practice squad, whatever way they have to do it to keep these guys evolve. Of course, you're gonna have to make cuts, but you just pray that you can get all these guys back on this team, practice squad or whatever.
I'm hoping that it comes out of the linebacker room. Like we go with one fewer linebacker.
Yeah, for sure.
There was no need last year to me to have 5 inside linebackers. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
what are we doing? You're playing 1 on a lot of downs, maybe 2, and we have 5 active for a game. And meanwhile, we have a shortage of safety. So if
Right.
it were up to me, instead of carrying, like we should have enough young players, big, fast players that can play on special teams, can cover kicks and things like that, that we can keep a guy like Ardarius, man. I'm hoping he was one of the guys I was thinking about mentioning when I said I don't want to mention anybody,
Right.
because Ardarius was a highly sought after UDFA.
Yeah.
He should have
Yeah.
been drafted. I think if you rerun that draft, he's drafted 9 times out of 10.
Right.
That year,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, a guy who was projected to go in the 3rd, 4th round. Yeah, he's undersized. Yeah, he's not fast, but I mean, he was just a great college player. There was no other way to say it. A great college player didn't
Right.
go drafted. So, I don't know where they're going to play him, if they like him against smaller slot receivers or if they're going to stick with him at safety. But if I had the choice between like carrying, I don't know, say a UDFA linebacker, another
Nah.
UDFA linebacker, and Christian Welch on the team, and
Yeah.
or get rid of one of those guys and carry like an extra DB. Knox, I'm going for extra DB
Yeah.
every single time, man.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, what after happened after last year.
Yeah. Last year would be a lesson to you. I mean, and like our Darius is another guy that has good ball skills. I mean, even in the preseason, you've seen he had a number of pass deflections. So you don't really want to get rid of him and leave him out dangling for guys like the Steelers or the Chiefs or your rivals or competitors, the Browns, any of these guys, the Bengals, whatever that's going on with that Jesse Bates situation, they could be trying to capitalize on any of the safeties the Ravens cut.
I
You
don't
know
like any of those thoughts. I don't like
exactly.
any of those
That's what
thoughts.
I'm
You
saying. Like
don't want it to happen, man. Yeah.
you don't want it to happen. So it's even more of a reason now, hopefully, that, somebody in the Ravens organization is listening to this. You want to keep all these guys the best way you can. Anybody in the secondary. Like you talk about those linebackers, they come a dime a dozen. I mean, you got Patrick Queen, you got Malik, and you got Bynes. Those are the only guys that we're pretty much focused on right now in the inside linebacker room. No outside linebacker rooms. We know how that goes. I mean, you got Bowser, you got Oway, you got Jabo, and whoever else.
Yeah.
The 3 guys that are going to see more of the time. So yeah, man, that's how I'm looking at it. I mean, that's how I'm looking at it.
I feel you, man. I'm right there with you. I mean, there's a shortage of DBs, and some way, somehow, the Ravens always accumulate them, and that's a big part of the game. The pass rush complements the secondary. You
Right.
need a little bit of both, but being deep in the secondary is a luxury. The Ravens invest there. We've always paid. I mean, last year, think about it. We paid 3 corners. We had 3 cornerbacks under contract, under good contracts: Marcus, Marlon, and Tavon. So
Right.
we need to keep our strength a strength is the best way I could say it. We're going in secondaries a strength. Let's try to do everything. We keep it that way. I'm going to try to become more educated this year, Knox, on some of the roster games and the historically what moves they make around the wink and a nod agreement, where you cut a guy,
Right.
leave him off the 53, but he comes back later. I'm going to
Right.
try to study this, because, man, we have some true depth on this team. So,
Yeah.
Knox, man, thank you so much for coming
Yes,
on,
sir.
taking some time,
Appreciate you,
man.
man. Appreciate you, man. It's always a pleasure coming on here for sure. Appreciate you for extending the invitation. It's always good talking to
Yeah,
football
man,
with
hell
you,
yeah. Man, right back at you, right back at you. So Knox, of course, is a man of mystery. We have seen his face before. I wanted to say, Knox, I tried to grow my beard out, man,
Yeah, I see that, man.
to match yours.
Yeah,
How am I
man.
doing? How am I
You
doing?
doing, man? You doing good, man. You're doing good, man. Just couple little castor oil, some beard oil on, couple brushes a little bit, man. You'll be right there, man. Don't shave it off. You have a habit of shaving it off, Jason. I tell you, don't shave it off. Let
Yeah,
it grow. Let it
you told me
grow.
that's in style. That's
Yeah,
in style.
yeah, man. You got to keep the 5 o'clock shadow thing going, man. All right.
I will.
Come
All
on,
right,
man.
so
Come on, man. You gotta
no
keep
other
that
jokes.
shading. Nah,
No
no
other
other
jokes
joke.
for
I don't
today.
got any other jokes, man. It's nothing to do, man. You look very comfortable right there with your Ravens gear on,
I
So,
am, man. I got pajamas that don't match. Check
oh
these
yeah,
bad boys out, man.
yeah. See, you can't go wrong with those. You can't go
Yeah,
wrong with
pocket.
those, man.
They got the pockets in it. I can carry the phone. I can take the dogs out for an
Yeah,
old man walk. I'm
that's right,
living the
man.
life. You
Hey, and
saw my
if you ever need a new a picnic table, cloth, you can just slide those drawers right across the table. Yeah, man.
Yeah, you saw my camping, glamping photos. We out in the wilderness.
I did, man. We talking about a man of mystery. I was like, Jason, where are you at?
I had,
And
yeah,
how many
then
people know you're there? Like, how many people know Jason is in the woods right there? Like, I hope so, man. I
at
hope
some of
so,
the
man. We
moments
don't have
those
to.
pictures were taken, it was just us, man. That was
Yeah,
it.
I was hoping, man. I was hoping that you don't never need an SOS call or something like that, man. Make sure you're all right out there.
No, yeah, we were having a good time, man.
No,
Try not
that's
to
all that
burn
matters.
ourselves. Yeah, man. Some getting in touch with some nature, man. That's kind of my
Hey,
style. So
got to, man. Got to.
So thank you to my football family. Love my football family. Appreciate everybody watching. We're going to do another show on the cornerbacks, the guys that we didn't talk about tonight. Get some more people on the show, and of course, I'll be trying to get Knox back on next round when it comes to when the season gets close. Knox, how's
Yes,
that sound,
sir.
man?
Yes, sir. Sounds like a good thing, man. Sounds like a
All
good
right.
thing. They always keep
Th-
going.
this time, you get your hair cut, get all trimmed up and stuff, and see if we can
Yeah.
spice up the screen a little bit. All
Oh
right.
yeah, man. Yeah, I know. I know you guys get tired of looking at this black screen, but hey, man, I'm still gonna do my due diligence regardless.
That's right, man. Good information. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yes,
So,
sir.
so Knox, man, time to say goodbye to the people now. Give some last words for us.
I appreciate you, Ravens community. Appreciate you guys for staying in tune. Um, all the wise words of encouragement. Everyone who's engaged, interacts with my posts, and everything who just builds a brand. I appreciate you guys, and I'll continue to keep studying, bringing on more insight with me and Jason. Hope to be on here, again and again, and throughout the whole season, we can keep this thing going. So appreciate you guys, and you guys stay safe out there.
Well said. All right, brothers. Thanks a lot, man. We'll see you later.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you.